Welcome to Femme Furious, a podcast where pop culture meets a feminine framing. I am your host, Julia Rose Portela, and today we are crashing out over Conrad Fisher wiping out on his surfboard. But before we dive into today's episode, I've got a ton of programming notes. So first and foremost, I want to apologize because I lost a ton of recorded episodes, including all of my content for Ironheart, all of my content for Fantastic Four, and some of the Summer I Turned Pretty episodes. And I had planned to re-record everything, but in the time that all of that happened, I also accepted a job in Paris. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't really have time to re-record everything between applying for visas and securing housing and getting my entire life organized. So I'm really sorry because there was a few weeks where nothing was happening, even though it was all scheduled to go out. And I'm really sorry because we're in the middle of a series and we got like episode 1 and 2 from me, and now we're just jumping right to episode 6. And I was going to go back and re-record the stuff in the middle, but honestly, I just don't have time. And the way that media and culture and everything is going anyway, we are just like plowing ahead. So maybe one day when I get settled, I will go back and record those episodes. But for now, we're just going to leave things as it is. We are jumping in today with episode 6. My official move date is October 15th. So here is my very loose plan for the podcast through the end of the year. I am going to be finishing up the coverage of The Summer I Turned Pretty. That will be taking us through the end of September. Now, also starting in September, I will be covering all of Stranger Things. So I'm going back to the beginning of Stranger Things. We are breaking down each season by the number of episodes. So some seasons have 8 episodes, some seasons have 9. And we will be breaking it down either by 4 episode stints or 3 episode stints. So it's not like you have to rewatch the whole season. You can go through with me. So we'll be doing The Summer I Turned Pretty through the end of September. That will be on Tuesdays. And then starting in September on Fridays, we will be starting with season 1, episodes 1 through 4 of Stranger Things. And then we will be going through pretty much the end of the year will be Stranger Things. That will be like our center focus of things that we're covering on this podcast. It's a huge part of the cultural zeitgeist. It's one of my favorite properties, and it's the last of the show. We've been with the show for so long, not as a podcast, but like us as a culture. So we will be doing Stranger Things. That way I can move and I don't have to worry about kind of like what is current. On the book front, in case you are unaware, Stranger Things, the last season, the series finale, will be towards the end of this year through the holidays. So there are a few episodes coming out in November and then a few episodes coming out in December. So literally Stranger Things from September through the end of the year, even I think a little bit into the beginning of next year, we'll be covering Stranger Things. On the book front, I have a really exciting episode that will be coming out on Halloween with an author who I not only love and admire so much, but I literally want to throw up thinking about the fact that they just immediately accepted the proposal to be on my podcast. Like there was no qualms. They got back to me within 24 hours. And I saw it and my palms started to sweat because I thought, hey, this is a long shot. And meanwhile, they're now going to be on my podcast. So that will be coming out. I'm going to leave it as a bit of a surprise for right now, but they will be on the podcast on Halloween. So that it will be coming out. I will also be doing some book coverage of Alchemy of Secrets, which is a book coming out by Stephanie Garber. So if you're unfamiliar with her, or maybe you're like, that name rings a bell. Yes, she wrote Once Upon a Broken Heart. She wrote Caraval. This is her debut new adult book. So it's a romantasy, I think. It's a gothic kind of like academia, dark academia book. And it is targeted towards adults. So whereas Caraval and Once Upon a Broken Heart, even though I love both of those books, are considered young adults. So this, I think, will be just a little bit more mature, perhaps. So we'll see. So I'm going to be covering that sometime in October. I will also be doing some kind of coverage for The Primal of Blood and Bone, which is the newest book releasing from the Blood and Ash series. That is by Jennifer L. Armentrout. And of course, I will be covering TS12 and Wicked for Good. Those are like some highlights of things that I definitively know will be happening on this podcast. Everything else is going to be sort of an up for grabs. We're going to see where pop culture take us. We're going to see what is unfolding, but those are definite stakes in the ground that I know I will be doing to some capacity or another when it comes to the podcast. But really, Stranger Things will be December. Towards the very end of the year, it's going to be filled with some fun episodes like my top book boyfriends of the year. This is an actual list that I do keep on my phone, and after every book, I go through all of my book boyfriends and try not to be stuck in recency biasy and stick them where they are appropriately placed. So December will be filled with episodes like that. I know I'm going to do an episode on my book boyfriends. I also know I want to do an episode on recommendations, all of my favorite stuff that has happened this year, things I'm excited for next year. So December will be a little bit looser, except for the Stranger Things coverage that will be going on. And that's really what the focus is going to be. Stranger Things is going to kind of be the centerpiece of this podcast, with the other pop culture pieces kind of moving in and out that are a little bit more fluid. So Stranger Things is going to be my first real long form deep dive, couple months that will be focusing on this one property. I will probably be writing a dissertation on Stranger Things by the end of this year. So hopefully you like Stranger Things, and hopefully you'll follow along for that part of the journey. If not, I'll see you on the one-off episodes that you may want to visit based off of the things in pop culture that you like. Because there is so much moving and shaking in my personal life, I can't maintain the Patreon right now. The people that were in it, I've already had conversations with them. They will remain in the Patreon, but the doors will close and they will be opening back up somewhere in 2026. However, because I want to stay in touch, because I want to be able to connect with you as a community, this is the community piece is the piece that is the most fun to me. I will be creating a newsletter, launching a newsletter that is called Lipstick and Lore, and it will have some of the content that was over on the Patreon, and it will transfer over to there. So Lipstick and Lore is a segment that we do on this podcast during our mailbag episodes. We have mailbag episodes after every single series that we do. So we have one up and coming for the end of the summer I Turn Pretty. Instead of having to wait till the end of a series, especially because the Stranger Things coverage is going to be so long, the newsletter will have a Lipstick and Lore section. It will also be the title of the newsletter itself, and it will give you the highlights that are unfolding each week. I'm also going to do the Fast Five over on the newsletter. So the Fast Five was something we were doing in the Patreon. It's a weekly content roundup. It includes movies, music, TV, etc., etc. Gives you recommendations. It tells you what I'm listening to, what I'm watching. It invites in you to tell me what you are watching and listening to and reading, etc. And you'll be able to keep up with all of that on the newsletter. There'll be some hot takes, some community shout outs, more stuff. I'm developing it now, but by the time you listen to this episode, it will be all ready to go. So you can join that by going to the show notes on this episode, wherever you are listening. There will be a link there, or you can head over to my Instagram. You can find it there in the link in my bio, or you can also find it on TikTok, because I am newly on TikTok, okay? You can continue to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. You can watch full video breakdowns on Spotify or on YouTube. And of course, as always, you can send me an email at femmfuriouspod@gmail.com. All right, let's take a chic peek at this episode of The Summer I Turned Pretty. Here is your blanket spoiler warning for all 3 seasons of this show, The Summer I Turned Pretty, and the books. I'm not separating the two. The Summer I Turned Pretty books, Summer I Turned Pretty, all 3 seasons. Okay, cool, got it? This is episode 6. It is titled Last Name. It is written by Siobhan Vivian and directed by Jude Wang. Here's the synopsis. Tension builds between Jeremiah and Belly as life and wedding plans spin out of control. Belly's besties come together to throw her a super cute bridal shower. Meanwhile, Conrad and Jeremiah's rivalry simmers just beneath the surface under the watchful eye of their father, and secrets threaten to turn celebration into chaos. Okay, let's jump into this week's Femme Frame, where we will dive into key feminist themes, herstory, cultural context, and more. So this episode of The Summer I Turned Pretty, titled Last Name, has 2 key feminist themes that I want to dive into that are sort of interconnected. But let's start with Belly's bridal shower. And if you know me, If you don't know me, you're going to learn something about me right now. If you give me a floral arrangement montage and a pile of ribbon-covered gifts, I am not just wondering if Laurel brought the lemon squares. I'm wondering, where did this whole bridal shower thing even come in? And more importantly, why do we still do it? I don't know about you, and please stay out of my DMs for this hot take, but I hate bridal showers. Maybe it's the bitter bitch in me who's always a bridesmaid and never a bride, but more realistically, the whole event to me, every single bridal shower I've ever been to, always just feels stuffy. But I digress. Let's rewind. Bridal showers actually trace back to the 16th century in Holland. Yes, the land of windmills and tulips and apparently gift registries before Amazon was a thing. Back then, if a bride's family refused to provide a dowry, oftentimes because they did not approve of their fiancé, her friends would shower her with gifts to make up for it. It was a sort of like crowdsourced dowry with a side of feminist rebellion. History.com and the Smithsonian both have some really delightful footnotes on this, by the way, if you're looking to do some deeper research. But this 16th century version is actually really badass, and I give it my feminist stamp of approval. The idea caught on in England, and from there it spread out to some other cultures like parts of West Africa or South Asia, where the concept evolved a little bit differently. Typically here, there were pre-wedding gatherings that focused less on gifts and more on preparing the bride with advice and rituals and community blessings. So if you've ever been to a bridal shower where you've gotten one of those advice cards and you say, write down your advice, and then you say, don't go to bed angry at your partner like everyone else writes down, that's where that comes from. When the tradition hopped over to America in the 19th century, it lost the angry dad withholding gold coins vibe and turned into a genteel tea party. Picture more Victorian parlors and parasols and delicate china. The goal in America was to set the bride up for domestic bliss with linens and kitchen gadgets. Fast forward to today, and showers are equal part Pinterest board fever dreams and Instagram content farming. The original feminist spark, women banding together to help one of their own to set her up with a good life, actually has gotten buried under mountains of monogrammed towels. But just knowing the history has really rooted me into what's so amazing about women, the way that we can come together to cultivate community, to solicit support from each other, and to provide each other a sense of love as we move through these key phases of our lives. And while I will never force my friends or family to endure a bridal shower of my own, if you're listening to this, let this be your reminder. You will never have to come to my bridal shower because I'm never going to have one. Also, if you're listening to me and you know me and I end up ever getting engaged. However, I may refer back to some of these traditions and create something that resembles the badass feminist community movement that this was all inspired by. Now let's talk about last names, just like the name of this episode, because historically when a woman got married, she didn't just take her husband's name. Under English common law, she actually legally became covered by him. This doctrine of coverture, which lasted well into the 19th century, basically erased women as independent legal entities. They had no property, no contracts, no voting, etc. We know the story. We've listened to versions of this story a bajillion times, okay? Your name wasn't just a title, it was a legal leash. Different cultures handled this differently. In France and in much of Europe, for example, women traditionally kept their last names, their birth names, at least legally, even if they decided to socially go by their married name, which was very common. They would retain their last name, their family name, but they would socially go by their husband's name or their married name. In Spain and in Latin America, children took on both of their parents' surnames. That's something that still happens a lot of times, which feels like a refreshing balance. In Japan, though, the law still technically requires a married couple to share one surname, and 96% of the time, it's the man's. The Japan Times did an incredible piece on the ongoing debate of this. So when Belly decides to keep her last name, which she publicly declares at her bridal shower, it's not just a cute quirk, it's what I'd actually call a micro-feminist power move. Fun fact, Belly's choice to keep her last name and then declaring that she wants to be like her mom and she just envisioned that she would be like her mom and keep her last name actually aligns with Korean tradition, which is what her mother is. So Belly is half Korean. In Korea, women almost never change their surnames after marriage since names are tied to your ancestral lineage rather than your marital status. So Belly making a modern move in our time also happens to be deeply old school and rooted in her ancestral lineage. In modern society, it's a quiet rejection of the idea that marriage requires a woman to vanish into someone else's identity. And considering how Jeremiah, and honestly, every single adult that is in this show have opinions about who Belly should be, it is refreshing to see her plant a flag in her own name. Is this a wink and a nod to Belly choosing herself? Maybe. But if I don't see her and Conrad in another salacious scene by the season's end, I will throw an adult tantrum. As for the bridal shower itself, it is peak Cousins chaos. I know they're not in Cousins, but peak Cousins chaos. And it is layered with centuries of societal expectations about what marriage means for women. First it was, here's a dowry, now go behave. Then it was, here's a blender, now go cook. And now it is, here's a link to my registry, smile for my Instagram. So the packaging changed, but the pressure, not so much. So through the femme frame of this whole episode, bridal shower, last name debate, awkward family politics, etc., is really about women claiming space in rituals designed to shrink them. Belly keeping her name is a small act, but historically small acts do add up. The first American woman to keep her name after marriage was called Lucy Stone in the 1850s, and she got hate mail, literal snail mail, hate mail for it. The newspapers called her selfish, but today it barely makes headlines, and that's progress. It's also proof that personal choices can ripple outward. So the bottom line is that bridal showers started as an act of rebellion, got domesticated into etiquette-driven tea parties, and are now basically content opportunities with a mimosa bar. But Belly's choice reminds us that even in the fluffiest traditions, there's room for quiet resistance and a chance to rewrite the script. All right, let's go through our slay by slay of episode 6. The opening snapshot to me is a depiction of how Jeremiah brings out the worst in Belly. She always has been described from the very beginning of the show as somebody who is wild and feral, but there's literally garbage and junk food and mess everywhere. And Jeremiah has always been described as someone who doesn't take things seriously, and it seems, based off of the way that this season is going, that the only person he wants to take him seriously is his dad. So only when Adam comes in does he start cleaning. Meanwhile, Belly is carrying the entire relationship on her back. Look, I've been doing spiritual work and counseling for years now, and when something goes wrong in a relationship, let's just say like you cheat on your girlfriend in Cabo, the path to healing is presence and proof. And here's what I mean by that. Showing up for your partner and showing them that you are actively trying and changing is what heals a relationship. And Jeremiah doesn't do any of that with Belly. Episode after episode, he consistently shows her how unreliable and unserious he is. And it's going to lead to trust issues down the road, even though it doesn't really matter because we know that Conrad is endgame. But still, he bails on the dinner with her brother. He can't get Laurel to change her mind. He doesn't even take the conversation that seriously. He can't even commit to fully singing happy birthday to her. He basically starts singing happy birthday to her. People start passing him. He decides to make this phone call to call her and sing happy birthday. Doesn't go somewhere private so that he can take all 30 seconds that it takes for you to sing happy birthday. Stops in the middle. Belly's like, what? You can't even finish that for me? And he's like, I'm at work. Sorry. And she's like, no, it's totally fine. Then 10 seconds later, he's like, I'm so hot for you right now. So you have no problem saying that in front of the entire office, but whatever, you can't sing happy birthday. So you can't even do that. He doesn't take the apartment seriously. He doesn't take any of the wedding planning seriously. He doesn't take her seriously. So even later on in this episode, when Conrad says, you know, he's serious about her to Laurel, that's not true. And he's not seeing all of these other pieces. Or maybe he is, but he just doesn't want to put him down because Conrad is a golden child who does not put anybody down. But episode after episode, think about it. You've just cheated on your partner. You've groveled for them, for you, like literally got down on your knees and groveled. Okay, it gave me the biggest, hardest ick that you got down on your knees and said, I will do anything except for all of the things that she's asked him to do this season. He hasn't done a single one of them. And he wants to know, it's not even going to be about Conrad. Conrad maybe filters into it, but I've just seen this again and again. Like, the crack is there with Lacey. You put a crack in it, and the way that you fix it is by showing that you're reliable, by showing that you're committed, by showing that you care. And at every single turn, he doesn't do anything for her. He brings out the worst in her, and maybe she brings out the worst in him. I don't know. But what I do know is that Conrad wants to see that she's eating, wants to see that she's eating something healthy. Like Conrad last episode, or maybe the episode before, when Belly's eating a Pop-Tart, and he's like, hey, I bought you cereal. I bought you, you know, fruit. You don't want to have a healthier choice? That's not really what he's saying. He's not saying healthier, but he's caring about her well-being. And you can see here, like, when Jeremiah and Belly are together, you know, Shin ramen and pizza and candy are the best that they get. And I don't know. That to me just shows you what kind of husband or partner he's going to be. All right. Adam agrees to give Jeremiah some time off to go look for an apartment. And I need to pause to tell you something that really annoyed me about this episode. They go to see this apartment. The realtor gives this whole speech that they're willing to rent to students because it's been up for a while, but then immediately says to them, like, don't wait because this is going to sell really fast. Well, obviously it's not if you're considering renting to students because the apartment's been up for a while. So make a decision. Ew, go away. Nobody likes salesmen like this. It gave me the ick. It's also just lazy writing. This to me is the details that matter when you're writing a show. And instead it becomes like a thing, a pressure point in that moment to say, like, we want to talk about Jeremiah's credit, to which they could have done that without saying that the apartment's been up for a while and they don't usually sell to students. I don't know. Anyway, this is a pet peeve of mine. Let's talk about the fact that once again, Jeremiah has a lie of omission. Okay, because the whole thing with Lacey is a lie of omission. It is not a direct lie because he can't lie about it if Belly doesn't know to ask about it, and the same thing is going on here. But telling Belly that he has racked up credit card debt on a credit card that he opened on a whim to get free Bruins tickets when he A, has a father who pays his credit card, and B, has a trust fund, a literal trust fund. Why are you making it seem like all of a sudden Jeremiah is a broke college boy? The writing in some of the seasons and some of these plot points are lazy because they want to get us to a conclusion of the character in which they could do this a million other ways, and the writing is so lazy because a huge plot point of season 2 is the boys being able to access their trust fund to be able to buy the house in Cousins when they know that the house in Cousins is going up for sale. They have a trust fund. They have money. This is something that is a huge part of the books. In like the first book, Belly talks about, like, I never really knew anything about money or never really thought about it until X, Y, or Z stuff that happens in the book. And this is something that they talk about in season 1, like Jeremiah and Steven talk about it, where Jeremiah and Steven are having a whole conversation and Jeremiah's like, bro, you don't get it. Like, you don't have to work. This is something that you're doing for fun to, like, get clout, to get girls and boys and whatever. Like, this is something that I'm doing because I have to do it. And this is why Steven has this whole issue with Shayla in the first season where he's like, I'm not rich. I don't come from this world. I come from the suburbs of Philly, and it's not even that nice of a suburb. I drive a Honda Civic. So there is a discrepancy between the two boys, right? There's a discrepancy between the Conklin family and the Fisher family, and this is consistently put out. As soon as Susanna says in season 1, like, oh, you should be a Deb, Laurel is like, that sounds expensive. And Susanna's like, don't worry, I'm footing the bill. Don't worry about it. If you have a father who's paying your credit card bill and you wanted to go to a Bruins game, I don't understand. I'm not saying that hockey is a cheap sport, but I am saying that I grew up in the proximity of two major hockey teams. I grew up on Long Island, about 20 minutes away from where the Islanders used to play, and I grew up about 45 minutes from the New York Rangers, where they play in Madison Square Garden. You can go see a hockey game for cheap. You can go to a Bruins game for cheap. You could have put 40, 50, 60, you could even have spent $100 on tickets, and to your father, that probably would have been nothing. So I don't understand why you needed to open up a whole credit card to get Bruins tickets when your dad is paying your credit card bill. And I'm sorry, but if your dad is paying your credit card bill, what are the chances that he is checking item by item what you've paid for? And if that was true, I don't understand why you, Jeremiah, don't just get a job and pay your dad for $100 tickets that you could have just bought with your own money. $100 is not a lot of money in this day and age. I don't understand where this is coming from. And you have a trust fund. Why can't you take $100 out of your trust fund? You have enough money in a trust fund to be able to split a house in a fancy part of town like the Hamptons of wherever, I don't know, Cousins Beach is. That house is fucking huge. If you've seen the house, like the shots of the house, there's no other houses near it in any of the shots when they're on the beach or anything like that. If you have enough money to be able to split a house and buy a house with your brother, with your trust fund, I don't understand why you can't take $100 out of your trust fund and pay your credit card or pay your credit card off if you have racked up credit card debt. Like, I don't understand this at all. It just seems like character assassination, and they're making him seem like he doesn't have money when he has money, and I don't understand why they're doing it. This to me is annoying. If you want to make him unreliable, if you want to make him somebody who's irresponsible, if you want to make him somebody who is unlikable in some way, they don't need to be doing it like this, because it doesn't make sense with the other plot points in the show where they're rich and they have money. So I don't know. Anyway, so let's get into the whole cat pee scenario, because this is really interesting and it's a metaphor for their entire relationship. Belly goes into the apartment. They're like, it's nice, huh? Jeremiah's like, huh, look, there's paint, there's granite countertops. And Belly's like, it smells like cat pee. And Jeremiah's like, I don't smell anything. And Belly literally calls him a liar. She's like, liar? Jeremiah comes back with, okay, well, we need a place to live next semester. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then Belly responds with, this is our first apartment together. It's important to me, right? I don't want to wake up to the smell of cat pee every single day. And Jeremiah goes, so we'll Febreze it. And like, okay, like, let's just go with this one because I have to head back soon to the office. Anyway, he's an intern, by the way. Okay. And I'm pretty sure like an unpaid intern or like gets like a small stipend based off of, I think, some other episodes. So here's what this whole interaction means to me. Because Belly ends up saying like, Febreze is some magical thing that you can use to cover everything up, right? Like if this is a problem, it doesn't matter how much you Febreze it, it's going to continue to be a problem. It's going to continue to persist. So what this whole interaction is saying, it's a metaphor for their relationship. So when Belly says, hey, something's off here. Hey, by the way, you cheated on me with Lacey. Cat pee. That's cat pee. And Jeremiah goes like, no, I don't actually smell cat pee. He goes, well, I didn't actually cheat on you. I didn't cheat on you. We were on a break. Okay. Yeah, buddy. Whatever. Belly then goes, no. Something's wrong. That's not how I want to live my life. Something has changed here for me. This is important to me. And this is our first apartment, right? This is our love. This is the thing that you're supposed to be nurturing. This is supposed to be important. And it's not that important to you. And Jeremiah wants to just slap a Band-Aid on it, which is exactly what this proposal was. The proposal was him slapping a Band-Aid on a huge mistake that he made as this grand gesture to say that I love you. The smaller one being the puka shell bracelet that he gets her when he is on vacation because he feels guilty about what he's done with Lacey. And the whole scene is to reflect what has happened. That when things ultimately get difficult, Jeremiah doesn't know how to deal. And his response to sleeping with Lacey is to propose to her to prove, or to propose to Belly, not to propose to Lacey, to prove to her that the Band-Aid is better than the problem. And the problem doesn't go away. Jeremiah cheating doesn't just go away because they get engaged. That's not what happens. That's not how real life works, right? Cat pee just doesn't go away because you Febreze it, especially if you've never been around cats before. That's not how that works. So this ideology that Jeremiah is not somebody who can handle when things get difficult isn't new. This is not anything new. This is not like this is just character assassination. No, this is who his character has always been. I want you to go back to season 1. I know we're talking a lot about season 1 today, but I want you to go back to season 1 to the volleyball scene where Taylor fakes getting hurt so that she can tag Jeremiah in because she says she's the CEO of Team Jellyfisher. So she is giving Jeremiah an opportunity to work with Belly and to show Belly why Jeremiah is a good choice, right? As soon as the competition starts to get real, as soon as it's no longer fun, as soon as it's no longer that they're on a winning streak, when things get difficult, Jeremiah chokes under the pressure and Belly tags Conrad in. Conrad, who remains calm under the pressure, brings the score back up, etc., etc. This has been there since season 1. So same thing. The second that he decides that there's something wrong with his mom, something that Conrad knows all of season 1, it's why he's acting out. Nobody is like, except Laurel and Belly, pretty much. Nobody is like, why is Conrad acting so weird? Like, why is Conrad acting so off? Not even his own brother is like, what is going on here? So all of season 1, when Conrad is acting weird and, dismissive and has a lot going on and all of this stuff, even then, at the very end, he sees that Jeremiah is missing and he steps up to the plate. Over the course of the whole season, while Jeremiah is out hanging out with his friends, hooking up with people, etc., etc., Conrad is the one that is putting his mom to sleep. Conrad is the one that is, doing all of this stuff with her in season 1. And I say that because when things get difficult, Conrad is the one that steps up to the plate. And when things get difficult, Jeremiah is the one who goofs off. And the only time that this is proven to be different or untrue is during season 2, when you see that Conrad is struggling with things at school, trying to find his balance between his relationship with Belly, being a college freshman, and his mom being sick. And the times that we see Jeremiah's like, you aren't here for these things. And in the book, it plays out a little bit different because in the book, Jeremiah admits, like, if Conrad knew how bad it was, he would have been here. But it doesn't seem to me, based off of what they've shown us in the show, that Conrad was, like, absent from all of this stuff. I say all of this because the second that Jeremiah decides that he wants to be upset about something, he overreacts, he yells, he throws a fit, he discovers that something's going on with his mom. He can't put it aside for the night. He knows that this night is not just important to Belly, it's important to Susanna. This is important to Susanna. Susanna is the one who pressures Belly to sign up for this thing, and Conrad knows that. So knowing not only is it embarrassing and difficult for Belly to be up there on her own, but knowing that this was important to his mother, Conrad is the one who steps up to the plate when Jeremiah can't deal and walks away and, overreacts and all of this stuff. This is who Jeremiah has always been. Jeremiah cannot handle the heat in the kitchen. And this scene with the cat pee is the epitome of that. Belly then goes back to Cousins, and my favorite detail here is that her dress, this like beautiful green dress that she was wearing, Lola looks fabulous this season in everything that she wears, matches Conrad's headphones. And it just shows that they're in sync even after time apart, or that they're always connected, or that they're always in synchronicity in some way. And Belly just wants to avoid this man like the plague because she is trying to do mental gymnastics about what has happened with the Peaches. It's replaying in her head over and over and over again. She doesn't need to say it. We all know it. So instead of just accepting that Conrad has offered her food, she's like, I got to get as far away from this man as possible, so I'm going to go in my room and eat a Kit Kat. Right? She doesn't want anything to do with him. She's trying her hardest to avoid him, to the point where, so she wakes up the next day, she goes to the club, she starts working with Paige on her wedding, and she calls Jeremiah and she tells him that she's having second thoughts because this isn't what she wanted her wedding to be. And Jeremiah's like, well, it's the only one that we're going to have. And instead of listening to her, where she says, this isn't the type of wedding that I wanted a small wedding. I wanted a wedding that was intimate. I wanted a wedding at Cousins. I wanted a wedding at the house. I wanted something that was just us and the people that I love and care about. Jeremiah, instead of validating her, instead of listening to her, instead of saying like, hey, by the way, the only reason I proposed to you was to get rid of the smell of cat pee, Lacey. So maybe I should just take into consideration what you want. What was Belly's one ask? If they each got one ask and Jeremiah's was the the mirror glazed cake was hers to get married at cousins. Like, what is her one ask that she wants that she's not getting? Jeremiah doesn't care that she wants her parents to be there and that her parents aren't coming. He just keeps saying, like, they'll come around, they'll come around, and they do. You know, Laurel does, but it's because of Conrad. So she wants her mom to be there, her mom's not there. She wants to get married at cousins, they're not getting married at cousins. Like, everything that she wants about this wedding is, you know, she wants to be small, now there's 100 people, and she's like, I don't even know 100 people. And instead of just listening to her and taking into consideration anything that she wants, anything that she needs, instead of validating her, he just goes, yeah, you don't have to look out at a sea of strangers. You'll look at me. He's basically like, narrow your focus and ignore all the problems with this and just keep looking at me. And then she goes in her internal dialogue, he's right, we just need to cling each other to get through the storm. I'm sorry, you don't need to white knuckle your fiance to get through your wedding day. Your wedding day should be something that is joyous. It should be something that's happy. I'm not saying that there's not stress involved in it. Obviously, I've known a lot of people who got married, and every single time people are like, this is stressful. So there is no avoiding, I think, the stress that goes along with planning a wedding, but it's not something that should feel like I need to cling to this other person to get through it. She's like, we need to get through the storm. I'm sorry, Susanna dying is a storm. Your wedding day is not a storm. Your wedding day should maybe feel like, ooh, it's stressful, there's some other stuff going on, but it shouldn't feel like, oh my God, you know? I don't know. So you can just tell the cracks are there. They are starting to widen. They are becoming a small chasm between them. And we continue to see shots. There's a lot of shots of especially Conrad between Belly and Jeremiah. So, you know, in the episode where they are the last dinner, the last supper, whatever, they're driving in different directions and Conrad kind of comes and walks through the middle. There's some other shots that happen where Conrad's in the middle. So we can just see it's getting wider and wider, that this thing that they're trying to do, the reason that they're trying to do it and the way that it's unfolding is dividing them apart. Because instead of him listening and actually being there and actually supporting her and actually giving her what she needs, which is something that Conrad does in private, doesn't even take credit for. He just silently does these things in order to ensure her happiness. Jeremiah does the absolute opposite. He's like, ignore the problems and just tunnel vision your focus onto me. Because if you just keep looking on me and you keep thinking that things with me are easier because you don't have to look at all of these problems and we're just going to keep putting Febreze over the cat pee, then there's no actual problems here. Because if you're just looking at me and I'm just looking at you and we're just ignoring everything else, then there's no problems. It doesn't exist. But the problem is that when you sweep things under the rug, eventually the rug gets so big that you trip over it. So just a word of advice, Jeremiah, maybe you want to listen to your fiance. Maybe you want to actually take into consideration what she's saying and saying, like, there needs to be a compromise. It doesn't need to be my dad. This isn't his dad's wedding. His dad married Susanna already. He's probably going to marry Kaylee. This isn't his dad's wedding. This is Jeremiah's wedding. And Jeremiah's wedding is turning into his dad's vision, and it is completely excluding Belly from the narrative. Jeremiah is also very happy to delegate any hard work that isn't any work for his dad. So he's willing to go above and beyond his station as an intern for his father's company. He's willing to step up when it comes to that, but as a fiance, he is so willing to be absent. So he basically says, like, well, Belly is planning the wedding with Paige, the country club is doing like 90% of the work, and everything else is like getting passed off to Kaylee. And it's like taking this thing that's supposed to be between you and your partner, something that's supposed to be special, something that you're doing because you fucking cheated on her, and you're trying to rebuild a relationship with her. You're willing to say that even the wedding, which is hard work, is something that you're willing to delegate. A wedding is supposed to be hard work. There's a lot that goes into it. It was a short period of time. They were doing it over a short period of time, and he can't show up for any of it. He's so happy that it's getting delegated. He doesn't want to do hard work. Jeremiah is not somebody who likes to do hard work. Meanwhile, the scene with Conrad and Laurel is everything to me. Literally everything. Because Conrad bottles everything up because he is an eldest daughter with eldest daughter syndrome. And you can't convince me otherwise. He has had so much pressure put on him, especially in show with his dad, even like later on when his dad is like, stand up straight, and then he like forces him to like stand straighter. There is a lot of pressure that is put on Conrad as the eldest son. There is a lot of pressure that we see subtly when Susanna was alive, and same thing now that she's gone, that ends up just falling onto Conrad's shoulders. And if you are somebody who is an eldest daughter, you know that it is like just a natural, organic thing to repress your feelings for the good of the family or for the good of the emotional well-being of everyone else around you. I'm not saying that that's a healthy thing. I am saying it's something that a lot of elder daughters have to work through, and Conrad's just an elder daughter. It's something that you can see the relationship that he has with these adults, the relationship that he has with the younger people in the show that are around him. The pressure of all of the perfection, the need to be perfect, sits on him. And this is why him and Belly are so good together, because Belly gently pushes back on this. There are so many times, especially last episode, when she's like, nobody is perfect, including you. And he's like, yeah, don't I know it? Because he psychologically tells himself that he has to be that way in order to be loved and accepted, because this is the pressure that's been put on him as the eldest in this dynamic, right? As the eldest in his family, as the eldest son. So he has had so much pressure on him, and in the books he has a whole monologue about how he deliberately stops doing stuff because he doesn't want to be like his dad. He's like, I see my father in myself, and I don't want to be the type of man who cheats on his wife, and I don't want to be the type of man who chooses work over my family. I don't want to be like him. So he's like, so I stopped doing all of this stuff, and one of the things is football. He's like, and I stopped doing football even though I loved football, because he doesn't want any of these connection points to his father, who was his hero, who ends up cheating on his mother. Now, obviously, Jeremiah doesn't know this at this point, that Adam has cheated on Susanna, and he doesn't know that it's been with Kaylee either. He just knows that Conrad and his father have some sort of tension, and he doesn't really know where that comes from. He doesn't really know the origin of it. And this is one of the things that Conrad consistently talks about in the book, how he represses things because he doesn't want to put the emotional weight on other people. And he even says it in last episode. He's like, I don't want to shatter Belly's sunshine, optimism view of how things can turn out. So I'm going to keep all of this in. And that's why that scene where we see him looking at her and they're having this like kind of sexy time, like that is so important, because we know now that he's doing what he feels is right by repressing things because he doesn't want to shatter Belly's viewpoint. In fact, he welcomes her viewpoint. He doesn't want to like taint it with what he feels like is his pragmatism or his maybe even like pessimism. And with Jeremiah, he holds things in because he doesn't want to ruin his brother's view of their father, even though he, Conrad, knows differently. He doesn't tell Jeremiah about Susanna because he doesn't want to put the pressure on Jeremiah. He doesn't tell Belly that things are getting worse. In season 2, he says something along the lines of like the medicine's not working, and Belly's like, well, maybe that's because, she's getting better and she just needs less of it. And Conrad's like, it's because it's not working and she's getting worse. In the book, he says, even though I love Belly, I'm summarizing here, even though I love Belly, basically allowed Jeremiah and her to be together because I knew that in that moment I could not give her what she needed and Jeremiah could. And he keeps this promise even that we see to his mother that like he'll take care of Jeremiah, and the way that he does that is by just staying out of his way, so that he, a person who knows that his father's a cheater and his mother's getting more sick and all of this stuff, like doesn't put that on Jeremiah. Even when the house goes up, Jeremiah's like, you should have told me. And Conrad's like so used to doing this stuff on his own. So seeing this relationship that he has with Laurel and knowing that he has somewhere that he can go and that they can connect and that they can be honest and that he will have somebody who sees him and listens to him and understands him and loves him is so, so, so important. And you can see it in Laurel's eyes that she knows that Belly's making a mistake, not because she's getting married, not because, she's not going to Paris. Like, it's not really about those things. It's because she knows that it should be Conrad and Belly. She knows this. Susanna knew this. And so, I don't know. I just love this scene. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was beautiful. I think it shows how mature Conrad is. I think it shows how selfless his style of love is. And I think it shows that he, more than anything, wants to put Belly and her happiness first. Now, it cuts then to this business proposal with Denise, and I think that this is what's going to happen. I think Denise is gay. I think eventually Steven is going to say something along the lines of like, I think you're really cute, or, you know, to go in to make a move or whatever, and I think she's gonna be like, whoa buddy, I'm gay. But I do think that the pathway to their relationship is going to be this business that they're doing together, because I do think that they have a lot of chemistry. I just think that he is misconstruing it, because even when she's like, I want to do something, right? And then she stops talking and she's like, never mind. And it almost seems like she's gonna ask him out, right? Or something like that. And that's kind of how Steven looks, like his face as she's walking away kind of like takes it that way. But she stops talking because other people from the office, whether they're partners or just higher ups or whatever, are walking past, and she doesn't want to say, hey, I have this idea and I want to talk to you about it. So she needs to corner him in private in his house so that they're away from people from the office to bring this proposal together. So I don't think that she was going to ask him out. I think that she just wants to start a business with him. I think she's probably gay or is not interested in him or has a boyfriend or something like that. But I do think that they work well together, and I do think that they'll be good partners. There's a lot of speculation that Taylor is pregnant. I did think it during last episode, but we shall see. There's also a lot about pregnancy in this season, like, oh, they're only getting married because they're pregnant. Like, people keep bringing that up. So I don't know if that's something that will unfold. I don't know if Taylor is actually pregnant. I don't know if people would feel satisfied if she was or she wasn't. But I do think that there is something about this relationship with Taylor and Lucinda that we're supposed to be zoomed in on for whatever reason. And Taylor is very maternal with her mother. So I could see it turning into an experience where she needs the salon to work out because she needs somewhere to stay because she's, you know, pregnant. But we'll see. I don't know if that's how it's going to actually be. And honestly, we're more than halfway through the season. We're at episode 6. There's only 11 episodes, and in that we still need to have some key moments that have not happened yet in the books. So I don't know where they're going to fit that in, because that's not something that's in the books. This is like this whole storyline with Lucinda is something that they're adding in, and they're giving Taylor a little bit of flavor and depth with it, even though Taylor is the most likable character on the show, arguably, and didn't need any of this to make her a more likable or understandable character. Now, I have watched this episode 4 times, maybe 5 times, and I have cried every single time that Belly sees Laurel at the shower. And I am not talking like, ooh, a little tear trickled down my face. I am talking about racking sobs each single time that I have watched it. It is so beautiful. It is so well done. It is so emotionally driven, and it is perfect. And I think this is one of the episodes. This is my favorite episode of the season, and I know a lot of people will say that it was episode 5 when it was Conrad's POV. I really thought mine would be that way too, but I think this episode is far superior in so many ways. And I think that the scene with Conrad and Laurel makes it one of the more superior episodes of the whole show. The scene then with Laurel and Belly at the shower is like absolutely golden, 12 out of 10, no notes. And then the last scene, obviously, which we'll get to with Conrad and Belly, is amazing, and honestly, you know, whatever. So this is my favorite episode so far of the season. I really, really love this scene between Belly and Laurel. I think it's beautiful. I think it was perfectly done. I don't think they could have done anything different to make it any better. And knowing that Conrad was the one to push them together is honestly so satisfying. So they're clearly then trying to show similarities between Adam and Jeremiah. It's actually really pathetic and also super relatable that Jeremiah wants his dad affection so badly. He clearly emulates him. They have the scene where they're like clinking the glasses and they drink together and they make the same face and they're kind of like nodding the same way. And Jeremiah's like, Dad, tell me about your clients. Tell me about all the crazy things. His really annoying, and I hate it, but it is relatable. I know that there are a lot of men and women who are desperate for daddy's love. Jeremiah just happens to be one of them, and it's one of the reasons that he's super dislikable. It's clearly trying to draw a connection between Adam and Jeremiah. Adam, the cheater, Jeremiah, the cheater. Adam, somebody who is not thoughtful and inconsiderate. Jeremiah, somebody who's not thoughtful and inconsiderate. Anyway, it's going to come out, this is what I think. This is a little prediction corner. It's going to come out that he is a cheater, just like his dad. So I don't know what's going to happen. I know how it happens in the book. Here's what I think is going to happen in the show. I think somewhere along the lines, Conrad is going to share with Jeremiah that Adam cheated on Susanna with Kaylee. I think in that conversation it's going to come out that Belly knew. Either that or Belly is going to say something to Jeremiah, something along those lines. It's going to come out that Conrad knew and that Belly knew, and I think Jeremiah is going to go back to Belly and say something along the lines of like, how could you know this information? How could you do this? And then I think Belly is going to say something along the lines of like, how could you be so upset when you cheated on me? I think Conrad is going to hear that, and it's going to be the disintegration of the relationship. It needs to come out in some capacity that Adam has cheated on Susanna, and to Jeremiah, the one person who doesn't know that needs to know. And it needs to come out to Conrad that Jeremiah has cheated on Belly. All of those things need to happen. So I'm not sure how, but that's what I think is going to happen. Like I could see Jeremiah being like, dude, like what's your problem? Like why are you like this with dad or whatever. I could see Conrad being like, you want to know what, dude? He cheated because he takes the chance and he tells them right that he got fired this episode. So maybe he comes out and he says something along the lines of like, you want to know what, man? The reason why my relationship with dad is like this is because dad cheated on mom. Then I think Jeremiah is going to spiral about that. And then I think it's going to end up coming out through Belly that she's like, why are you so upset about this? Like father, like son. I feel like that would just dig the knife in. Anyway, that's kind of what I think is going to happen. But they are clearly trying to draw these similarities. And honestly, I think that Jeremiah's insecurity and his inferiority to, and honestly like resentment of Conrad for being born first, essentially. It's not, he's perceiving Conrad to be the favorite when Conrad is perceiving it to be under so much pressure. He doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to be connected to Adam at all. He doesn't want to be doing any of this stuff, but he's putting on a good face because it's Jeremiah's wedding and he doesn't want to stir the pot. But honestly, all of this is Jeremiah's own insecurity, and I think that's why he doesn't want Belly to go to Paris, because he knows that somewhere deep down he is just like his father, somebody who is just like this. Whether he knows that his father is a cheater or not, he knows that if Belly goes to Europe for 4 months or 5 months, that he is going to cheat on her again, because he couldn't even keep it in his pants for a week in Cabo. So Adam asking then if Conrad is going to make a play for one of the bridesmaids, it's like, no sir, he is going to make a play for the bride. But okay. Also, the whole scene is problematic. Remember in season 1 when Nicole gets tickets for the concert, and I'm sorry, I know I'm talking about season 1 a lot today, and Jeremiah is like, oh my god, Conrad loves that band, you should ask them to go. And then his phone is blowing up and Conrad's talking to Conrad after him and Belly almost kiss, and he's like, why are you in such a good mood? Like, who's blowing up your phone? He's like, Nicole. And he's like, are you gonna go to that concert? And he's like, yeah, I guess, right? So Jeremiah has always been conniving. He has always been a schemer. He is always trying to get Conrad out of the picture so that he even has a shot with Belly, because he knows that if Conrad's in the picture, he has no chance, because he knows, like everyone else knows, that she has had a crush on Conrad for so long. So he needs to get Conrad out of the way so that he can swoop in to even make a move to even get Belly's brain on the same wavelength, because she's not even looking at him like that. In the books, it comes out a little bit different, but in the show, it's like, does he even really like Belly to begin with, or does he just want what Conrad has? And this just seems attainable to him. I don't know. Jeremiah so desperately now wants to get Conrad out of the way, so he's like, are you going to hook up with anybody at the wedding? Like, are you going to bring a +1? And he's like, no. And then he's like, you should hook up with Annika. It's Belly's friend. I'm going to talk about this in a second. He's like, it's Belly's best friend, Belly's roommate. She's single. She's really hot. Like, all of this stuff. Now, let's consider this. Annika is probably a woman that Jeremiah has spent a fair amount of time with, considering that Annika is Belly's friend and roommate. He has no problem putting Conrad onto this woman. Not like, hey, I think you guys would really connect. Hey, by the way, whatever. He just wants to bring Conrad down to his level so badly. So when Conrad's like, well, there's really no point because I'm going back to California, Jeremiah's like, that is the entire point, that you should just hook up with somebody just to hook up with somebody and have like funsies with it. And Adam laughs at this. And the thing is, like, this shows how differently they perceive relationships and how seriously they take things. To Jeremiah, who is a born flirt, these fleeting encounters maybe don't mean anything to him. So when he says to Belly, like, it didn't mean anything with Lacey, it's important for us, the audience, to hear Belly say, it means something to me. And that is like one of my favorite lines maybe from this entire season. Like, it doesn't matter that you're saying it doesn't mean anything. It means something to me. Doesn't even consider how this would impact Annika or how it would impact Belly. Like, okay, for Conrad to get mixed up with Annika means that it's going to get messy. Perhaps if Annika ended up having feelings, what would that mean if he's going back to California? And what position would that put Belly in? What position would that put Conrad, would that put Jeremiah in? Like, he doesn't think about these things. He doesn't even think about the fact that, like, Annika may not be cool with this. Annika may not want this. Annika may not be into this. He just wants to offset this relationship so badly so that Conrad's not a problem for him and Belly. And it tells you so much about Jeremiah's character and Conrad's response to this, where he's like, I don't want to just like hook up with somebody and then go back to California. Like, that doesn't feel right to me. You know, what's the point of that? That is so telling of Conrad's character and how he values relationships and how he values intimacy and what that means. And then they obviously go out to lunch, and Jeremiah and Adam just relentlessly team up on Conrad, and it's mean, and my heart hurt. Then it cuts to Belly at the house with her mom. It flashes back. We get the musical. We get her singing, "We love you, Conrad. Oh, yes, we do." We get Bye Bye Birdie, which is one of my favorite musicals, okay? I did musical theater for a majority of my life. So I was in Bye Bye Birdie, in like my school's production of Bye Bye Birdie. It was my favorite play out of all of the plays that we ever did that I was in. One of my most quoted musicals. I sing stuff from this all the time. I quote stuff from this all the time. And no one usually knows what I'm talking about except a rare few people, my mom being one of them, because now she's just used to it, I think. So I just love that we got this, because the first time that I heard Conrad, before I had read the books or anything like that, when it was season 1, that was my immediate thing, was to be like, Conrad Birdie, like Bye Bye Birdie, all of this stuff. So I love that we get this. I love that she's singing, like young Belly is singing in the mirror. It's so relatable. I don't give a fuck if this isn't you. It's me. It is so many of us that are musical theater babies it's just so relatable to be singing in the mirror. And then I love that it kind of cuts to now they are watching Funny Face. They have Bonjour Paris playing in the background. And I think, again, we're still getting these Paris nods, these Paris winks, because I do think she's going to go, and I think we're going to see her there. Then it cuts back to Belly and Conrad in Cousins. We see Conrad coming through. He's hurt. Belly's kind of like, are you okay? She recognizes. He's like, yeah, not too bad. She's not facing him, but she can hear it because she knows Conrad. She's so in sync with Conrad at this point. She's so in tune with Conrad that she knows that he's somebody who is going to minimize how bad it actually is. So she's like, let me just go check on that. And as soon as she gets up and she goes to the staircase, she sees that there's like blood, trailing up the staircase. And she's like, okay, all right, obviously you're not fine. She sees him in the bathtub and he's like, it's fine. It's already stopped bleeding. And I love that she's just like, you're not fine. Like, for fuck's sake, let me help you. Because I think this is a cracking point for her where she's just like, you want to know what, dude? Like, fuck off with this pushing me away shit. I know that everyone's saying that Belly is an unreliable narrator, and she is. And I know that we're supposed to be seeing that over the course of these episodes, that she has forgotten what has happened with Conrad, or that she has, like, minimized what has happened with Conrad. But here's the thing. Conrad actively admits to pushing her away. He consistently ebbs and flows with her, even in season 1. And this is so important because there's a point where she's impacted by this. He starts to push her away, towards the prom, and then she's like, just say it. If we're over and you're over this and you don't want to be with me anymore and you're pushing me away and that's why you're doing this thing, like, okay, just say it. Just tell me. And that is what leads to their breakup. Even though it comes out like, you broke up with me, whatever, maybe that's how it comes out or whatever, but he knows he teed it up for her. He says it to Agnes, I teed up the breakup for her. And when it comes to this right here, when she's like, you're not fine, for fuck's sake, let me help you, it's her realizing that this is what he does. This is his pattern. He pushes her away, pushes everybody away, and instead of being like, fine, you've got that, she's just cuts through all of that right now. She's like, obviously it's not fine. Just let me help you. Just let me be there for you. And this is why when she gets drunk in season 2 and they're on the beach and they have this whole scene where she was like, I would have been there for you. I would have been there for you through everything. Why did you throw it all away? Why? And he's like, I thought you knew. And obviously we get more context to like why that's important this season in his perspective. But what she's saying there isn't bad or wrong either. She's like, I would have been there for you. I would have supported you, but you pushed me away. And that's how you respond to things. And like, how am I supposed to respond to that? That's the subtext of what's happening in that conversation, right? So when she says here, like, for fuck's sake, let me just help you, she's saying like, enough with this bullshit, Conrad. Enough of pushing me away. Enough of saying that you don't need help. Enough of doing it on your own. Enough of that. And she sees through it. And then, in the scene, her heart starts beating again. If you've seen cuts of this on the internet, there's like when she's running away from Jeremiah, which is the last time that we heard Taylor Swift in the season, it's a lyric saying, my heart stopped beating. And now, and this comes from the book where she says, my heart was beating so loud I could hear it. Now when he is leaning on her with his head there, her heart starts beating again. And then False God starts playing, which is the song that was playing on the 4th of July when they were about to kiss for the first time, and Jeremiah ruins it by doing the firecracker thing. So False God being here is like a connection point to the fact of like resetting where this was in the beginning, which is it was always supposed to be them if Jeremiah didn't ruin it or get in the middle of it, right? Jeremiah gets in the middle of Conrad and Belly, not that Conrad is getting in the middle of Jeremiah and Belly now. Jeremiah always got in the middle of it. That was always where it was going. They were literally season 1, episode 4 on the 4th of July. They are about to kiss and he ruins it and then manipulates and connives his way into the situation to keep them separated and to essentially swoop in and steal his girl. Okay? So the fact that False God plays again is to me like the reset button, like, ooh, we're going back to this beginning piece where these feelings are still there, where we're in that, like, it's new and we're about to kiss. I don't know. I love it. I was like, kiss already. Just kiss. Never have I ever wanted somebody to cheat more in my entire life than I did in this moment. Anyway, so we hear her heart beating and then we see her kind of clutching where his hand was at the end of this and where his head was. I don't know. I just love this entire scene. There are just certain episodes of TV that are just stand out in your mind. They just exist here for the rest of your life, and this will be one of them because this entire scene changed the fabric of my DNA. All right, that is our slay by slay of this episode. Let's crack open the burn book where we look at the superlatives for this episode. The Bold and Bothered Award is Belly and the Cat Pee debacle. Girl, same. Okay, the Shiro Award is Denise proposing to start a business with Steven and to help them both get where they want to go in their career, because behind every great man is a woman who has elevated them both. But also, slash in the Shiro Award, the second Shiro of this episode is Laurel going to the bridal shower. The Femme Fatale Award, Taylor being low-key jealous of Denise and then being at the shower and giving Steven absolute fuck me eyes. Speak Your Truth trophy, the entire conversation between Laurel and Conrad. 12 out of 10, no notes. Honorary heartthrob. I'm sorry. Did you see the shot of Conrad's ocean blue eyes and his sun-kissed skin basked in golden sunlight with his romantically wet hair just slightly looking up at Belly? Did you see that? Because I saw that. Honorary heartthrob. Just like Belly, my heart started beating again. Biggest Belly flop. Jeremiah telling Conrad to hook up with Annika. and then The Sounds of Summer, which is the best musical drop of the episode. Now, this episode has a lot of good drops. It has Time After Time, it has Bye Bye Birdie music, it's got False God, and they all end up being incredible in the way that they're placed. Time After Time is important to me. It was my senior prom song. Bye Bye Birdie is important to me. It was one of my favorite plays that I was in, but I am giving it to False God because it has been on a loop in my head since this episode has played. Okay, thank you for tuning into this episode of Femme and Furious. If you like this episode, share it out on your socials, etc. Subscribe, leave a review, all that good stuff. Okay, next episode on Friday, I will be covering K-pop Demon Hunters. I've been wanting to do this for a minute or two, and it's just working out that this is where it gets to fall into. So I will be covering K-pop Demon Hunters. I will see you on Friday. Until then, chin up, babe. I love you.